Welcome, Elizabeth, to the Biohacker Based podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Lauren. Hi, Renee. Nice to be here. Thank you.
It's awesome to have a fellow FDN practitioner. We have some things in common and we have some things not in common. You were a former medical malpractice attorney, so I'm very curious to hear how you meld that world with the functional health space. But you're doing some amazing work empowering women to look beyond their symptoms, trust their intuition. That's a huge thing we love to dig into on this show, and really reclaim their energy, especially through the perimenopausal transition. So we're going to talk lots about perimenopause, what that transition looks like, how to prepare for it, how to optimize. So thank you so much for being here for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I love that you say reclaiming because I feel like perimenopause is the exact right moment for us to take control over our health, over really all aspects of our life. It's can be overwhelming, but it's also a great time to be like, okay, this is when I'm really going to dial it all in. Anything I've been putting off, things our body used to be able to, we could get away with putting it through. It's not so easy anymore. And so it sort of forces us to make those changes.
Yeah, it does. I find a lot of women get to that point and they're like, okay, I finally have cracked the code. And then everything changes and they're like, shoot, now what? So how do you even
Oh,
begin to unravel the puzzle? Because it's complex, right?
yes. It's funny that you say that. I 100% felt that way, that I had cracked the code because I had been through a really severe mold illness and, having four children and issues with each of them. And I'd gone through a lot of education and I was like, I was at a point in my life where I just felt like I knew it. Anything that could possibly happen, I got it. And then all of a sudden, my menstrual cycle was 25 days and it was always 28 on the dot. And so that was a little bit of a clue that women can look for. If it's either shorter or longer. For me, it was shorter. And then I started having anxiety. And I thought, gosh, this is crazy. I had anxiety before with parasites, I had it before with mold. I had addressed all of that. I knew none of that was going on. And so that was nuts because I'm a somatic coach. So working on my nervous system has been a priority for a very long time. I was still meditating. My sleep was good, doing all the right things. But those were all, for me personally, clues that something was off. And it did take me probably 6 months to figure it out, that my progesterone was low. And that's often what is low first, which is why anxiety and lack of sleep is such a big one before hot flashes or anything like that. So I think just for a woman to kind of sense if things are off. Are they all of a sudden more worried about their kids for no reason? Are they all of a sudden feeling a little panicky when they go out to dinner, or they feel like their routine isn't, they did everything right for a good night's sleep, but they're not getting a good night's sleep. Everything's just off. So for a long time, I specialized in mold. That's one of the first things I look for is mold, parasites, anything like that. And if it's not that, and that alone can throw off your hormones.
Hmm.
So you've got to figure that stuff out anyway. But if everything's coming back, that it's in check, that's time to really say, is it progesterone, estrogen, testosterone? And any of those can change in different orders depending on the woman. We're all very different. Testosterone typically is the last one to go, but if your adrenals are really taxed, it can be one of the first. So there's no like black and white, this is the roadmap. It's going to happen at 35. It's going to happen at 45. There's such a huge range. For me personally, I was okay until 45, but for a lot of women, they're feeling it at 35. And a lot of that goes back to just, their lifestyle, their mitochondrial health, their cellular health, what their lifestyle is like. Because the more you take care of the foundations, the more you can really extend the life of your ovaries. And it's really a good idea to ask your mom what age she had menopause, because this is one of the few areas. Usually I'm very like epigenetics, it's lifestyles, this, it's that. But this is one of those rare times where you could almost within a year or two guarantee it's the same as your mom's. because we get all of our
Wow.
mitochondrial from our maternal side.
Right.
And
That's
so
wild. Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah.
it's a yes, it's a good question for mom.
Yeah. And I don't know the answer. I don't know if Lauren does. I'll have to ask. Oh.
So, yeah, well, our mom had a false menopausal transition because she had a hysterectomy. So, other things considered, and I think that was
Yeah.
before we had more knowledge of like, let's look upstream, let's look at other causes besides just removing the organs. So, I don't know that we have an accurate historical date for that.
True. True.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
could go back
Okay.
and ask her about symptoms and sort of the timeline of perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as like the age, I'm curious with as our environment is becoming more toxic, which is impacting all of our hormones, but we're also seeing women, giving birth later in life. Are we seeing any kind of age change as far as when women are entering menopause, like earlier or later, or is it both?
Yeah, well, you would think, that the more kids you have, then the less cycles you have, so you get some more potential longevity out of your ovaries. I mean, it does play a role. 2 to 3 kids is kind of the sweet spot, and then 4 kids can kind of accelerate it. Um, but again, it's largely genetics and lifestyle. So, how well are you taking care of yourself through all of that? I had my fourth child at 41. But my mom had menopause at 51. I'm now 51, and I feel like it's probably happening in the next year or so.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but
And
I added,
how long was
yeah.
that the perimenopause transition? And like what is the range for that?
Well, it depends on the woman, and some things can make it really hard to tell. So, if you've had an ablation, it can be difficult to tell. If you have an IUD, if you are on birth control. So, one of the things I do like is to have a woman try to wean off of birth control if she can, if she's in her mid 30s and beyond, because our monthly cycle is really a vital sign, and it's a report card, and it lets us know where we stand in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an amazing gift, and so without it, it's very hard to know. And so there are women that are fully menopausal and they're 45 but they're on the pills. They have no idea because they're still getting this false cycle. They're getting a monthly bleed, but it's not actually a menstrual cycle, so that's very confusing.
Oh God,
Yeah.
that kills me. Like, I'm not going to say that I love my period, but I just can't imagine not having those signals, that report card, as you mentioned. It's just
I
free
know.
information and diagnostics to just like suppress it and get rid of it. We're just like missing out on so much intelligence. So, thank you for sharing that. If we're going to look at more of the prevention side for someone that has been on birth control, maybe has a false bleed or no bleed at all, how do we kind of start maybe cleaning up nutrition, environment? What are some things we can do to counteract the impacts of the birth control to make sure that we
So
transition optimally?
So if someone wants to transition off birth control, they first need to think about what they felt like before they went on the pill, because a lot of those things will come back. So if they went on it for acne, that can come back with just a vengeance, because you've been
Sure.
suppressing those oil glands, and now they could go through a transition period where they have a lot of acne. So they've got to kind of mentally gear up for that. If they took it because of endometriosis, they should know that that could be aggravated again. So think about their personal history. But in general, the pill does similar things to people that they may or may not feel the effects of depending on their genetics. So it really depletes your Bs, and if someone has an issue with methylation, they're going to be more affected. So make sure they're taking a great methylated multi B vitamin. Make sure they're working on their gut lining, because the pill does cause leaky gut just in and of itself. So we want to support our mucosal layer. There's amazing supplements for that. And we really want to take care of the thyroid. So if you've been on the pill, you already have upwards of a 300% increase in Hashimoto's. And your increase during perimenopause alone with thyroid issues is so high, because as we lose progesterone, we lose our ability to convert T4 to active T3. So the loss of progesterone alone causes that, and the pill has a synthetic progestin, so we're not getting that progesterone. So there's a compounded effect there. So a lot of women will need a little bit of progesterone to help them during that time, depending on how they feel, if they're sleeping, if they have anxiety or not. The pill also decreases selenium, iodine, so the things that we need to support your thyroid. So it's helpful to add in a little bit of that and to be prepared for a mental change, maybe a little weight gain. I mean, you can gain weight when you start the pill, but you can also gain it when you stop it. So we have to have patience with ourselves for our bodies to kind of get used to the transition the same way that we may have had to get used to the transition when we started the pill. So I like to kind of temper expectations there. And then to then consider, if you are on it purely for contraception, then what are your alternatives? I really like UVA. It's a little bit expensive. It strips, but why I like it is because it also measures LH. So a lot of the, there's Clear Blue Easy and stuff that'll let you know when you're ovulating, but that can be a minute too late. So I like to be able to see LH, and you only need, once your cycles are a bit regular, you don't need to use those strips every day. If it's irregular, it's going to be a little expensive because you're going to have to use more strips. Yeah. But if you have somewhat of a regular cycle, then it can be less expensive because you only have to test a couple days a month.
Yeah, I have some of those test strips. It's so easy. It's so cool that you can do it just any day at home. It gives you so much insight. And I'm actually I don't know why it just hit me this morning, but I've been leaning so much into cycle syncing the last maybe decade. I don't want to lose that. So can we keep doing a lot of the cycle syncing habits for, I don't know, for a really long time? Or is there going to be some point where we have to just completely give up on that?
No, you can still use it. And even if you're fully menopausal, if you're on rhythmic HRT, meaning you're only taking progesterone half the month, your body is still in a very similar hormonal flow.
Okay. And are you a fan of cyclical HRT?
Very much so. Very much so. So,
okay. Cool.
Yeah, traditionally, if you go to a more traditional physician, they will give you a low dose patch and daily progesterone. That's typically what I see. And for a lot of reasons, I don't like that approach. The patch is, first of all, estrogen. When you put on the patch, it makes your estrogen go very high. And then a couple of days later, it's lower, lower, lower. And that's not how our body works. So ideally, you would be applying a cream twice a day because it only lasts for about 6 hours. So you put some on in the morning, you put some on late afternoon. That's more along the lines of how our body naturally works. And then around day 12, you would triple it because, again, that's how our body works. And then we ovulate. And then after ovulation, we have progesterone. So you would start it, around day 14, 15, and only take it for 2 weeks because we can really burn out our receptors. And so it's the yin and yang and the ebb and flow that our body likes. Our body likes our receptors to be cleared out and then really take it in. So you can have a lot of irregular bleeding if you're taking daily progesterone. If you're doing it cyclically, it's very reliable. It takes a few months to get into a flow and to get all the concentrations right. It doesn't happen right out of the gate. So there is a little bit of work to be done to get the right amount for you. But once it's done, it's predictable. And then you do have that withdrawal bleed. So you know that everything's going according to plan. And so, and our brains like that, and our bones like that, our osteoclast and osteoblast function rely on the ebb and flow and the back and forth of estrogen and progesterone. So our bodies do not like everything to be the same all the time, hormonally.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, they're all signals, and we need signals to balance each other. We got to change the inputs. I couldn't agree more. It's just ancestrally, that's how we were designed. Biologically, that's how we function. Well, if we're gonna go ahead, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say a lot of women get addicted to progesterone because they love the way it feels at night, that it helps them sleep. But estrogen plays such a strong role that's so underestimated and under-talked about in the role of sleep. And you really need enough estrogen to get enough sleep. So you don't need the progesterone every single day to get a good night's sleep.
That's great to know. Yeah, I have heard people are like clinging to it and
Don't take it away. Yeah.
don't
Oh.
take away my
Ha-
progesterone.
how does estrogen impact sleep? What's
So
the role there?
estrogen is more of like a long night's sleep, whereas progesterone is more sleep onset.
Ah, okay. Okay. I
Yeah.
hadn't heard that. Interesting.
Yeah. So if you take progesterone at night, but you don't have enough estrogen, you'll fall asleep, but you'll wake up in the middle of the night.
Okay. Okay.
And I know you're a big fan of testing because you're an FDN and that was a huge like unlock for you. So of course we always want to get the bio individual information about what your body's doing because there's probably endless, infinite possibilities of how this hormonal transition could potentially happen. Correct? And I think if like we didn't test, most women would probably just go for the progesterone on their own, but we really need a delicate puzzle here, right? Have you seen any extreme examples perhaps go wrong without the testing?
Well, I think there's a lot of noise right now with some big influencers saying it's the zone of chaos. There's no need to test. And I think it's because it
Yeah.
fits really well into their business model, because it's a
Sure.
hassle to test people and to
Oh,
follow
yeah.
up. I don't understand how you could put a woman on hormones and not have a baseline and then not test to see where they're at.
Yeah.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
And to say that perimenopause is just the zone of chaos, so forget it, is insane because our whole life is a zone of chaos. I mean, our hormones fluctuate from hour to hour. You could take a sample at 6 in the morning and it's going to be different at 12 noon. So we're looking for a general idea and we're looking for patterns. So especially in the perimenopause years, I like to do it every 6 months and get a pattern. So FSH is very reliable. If it's over 25, you're really close to being menopausal. And so I can see with clients like, okay, you're 5 now, you're in good shape. Oh, 6 months later, you're 10 already. Well, we are seeing a change here. So we know that you're entering into a little bit of a transition. Same thing for progesterone. Of course, it's not going to be always the same. And then progesterone, we do want to test the second part of the cycle around, days 19 to 21. And what's interesting in perimenopause is that, and one of the reasons it's referred to as the zone of chaos is because you can have a regular cycle. You could have it be 28 days every single month and still not be ovulating every month.
Right.
So 1 month you could test progesterone and it could be almost nothing, and the next it could be a 12 and everything's great.
Yeah.
So you'll see those changes, and that's confusing to women because they can say, well, why is it so low? I mean, I have a regular cycle and everything. Well, it's because your ovaries are starting to sputter out, and so they're not releasing every single month. So we can see patterns over time. But one of my favorite things to look at is lipids, because as we lose estrogen, our cholesterol goes up, our particle size, the stickiness of it, like the whole thing, the oxidative stress goes up. So even though it can be hard to catch estrogen in particular, lipids are a really good indication. If they're going up, your estrogen's going down, especially the oxidant effect of estrogen is disappearing. So you have a lot more oxidized cholesterol, which is harmful, which is one of the reasons why women all of a sudden, we're ahead of men as far as heart disease goes. And then in the menopause years, we surpass them because we've lost our estrogen, we've lost all that great protection. And so our lipids become stickier and we start having, plaque buildups. So it's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why you also hear you need to start it within 10 years of menopause. The concern is that you've already built up plaque, and if you add estrogen, it can dislodge that plaque. So you want to stay ahead of it.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome. That's a very good point for estrogen because people are still, scared of it for sure, even though we're hearing more and more benefits.
Yeah. What if you have low estrogen, I mean, early on, like in your 20s and 30s? Would you
A
start
lot of
testing?
women do. A lot of women have low estrogen. A lot of women have low progesterone. And you can help balance it off with just a little bit. When you have a topical cream, you have a lot of control over how much you're being exposed to and how much you need, and especially when we talk about things like histamines, because a lot of women develop histamine intolerance as they're going through this phase. And it's not so much that your histamines are or your estrogen is so high or so low. It's the fluctuation of estrogen during that time that our bodies really don't like. So adding a little topical can really help smooth that out. Instead of twice a day, maybe you just do it once a day. So the whole thing, that whole process that could start, 35 and go all the way to mid 50s, it's a long time, and we really have to just pay attention. Testing is great. Anything like wearables, Aura rings. I also love continuous glucose monitors during this time, because as we lose estrogen, we lose our ability to control our insulin and our glucose. So for blood work, I definitely like to check both of those, both insulin and glucose. And I like to do 2 weeks of a CGM I prefer twice a year, but even once would be helpful. And just eat your regular diet and see how it affects you, because things that you used to be able to eat just fine that wouldn't increase your glucose all of a sudden will, because you don't have enough estrogen. And so that's also, there's so many different indicators. Also, if you wear an Oura ring, you can see if you're getting a whole lot less deep sleep, or if you can just feel it. You feel it's more difficult to stay asleep. You're waking up in the middle of the night. That's also an estrogen thing. It doesn't have to be a hot flash.
Right.
Yeah.
And for testing, are you doing blood testing for this, or
Blood. So I do blood for hormones, but I do like urine testing at least once, especially if someone wants to do testosterone, because I want to make sure that they're not heavily DHT. So it's a really easy way to see, like, are you going to be prone to acne or hair loss or any sort of masculine traits? If someone's like firmly not going down the DHT pathway, I don't really have a big concern. I say, yeah, sure, you could take a little testosterone, and that could go a long way. I mean, a lot of women's testosterone in perimenopause is like a 10 or 15, and personally, I've seen with most people, they feel a little healthier, at least at a 40. So, but I also strangely see a lot of women in their 20s just taking a bunch of testosterone. I feel like they're not even looking, or they don't even know why. They just see other girls at the gym and they talk to each other and, oh, you look great. What are you doing? I'm taking testosterone. Okay, I will too. And they never look at their levels, and they don't take a urine test most of the time.
Oh gosh.
No, and they're not looking at the underlying root causes, which at that age, that's what you should be doing, rather than perimenopause.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a little more expected. Of course, we need a little support, but at that age, you got to figure out why that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So blood for sure for hormonal levels, but to see how they're functioning, I like urine. And I like it before a woman starts hormones, and then 6 months later to see how they're metabolizing them. It's very helpful.
Okay. And what are some of the root causes? So like Lauren, you just said, like, if you're in your 20s and you're already dealing with that, like, what are some of the root cause things we want to be looking at before jumping to HRT?
I mean, a lot of times what I see is just the typical stuff, which would be over exercising and eating a lot of ultra processed foods and drinking too much alcohol. And, sometimes it's a mold exposure or some kind of toxin exposure. So, and again, it depends a lot on a woman's genetics, how well they're detoxing things. And, things like endometriosis are highly linked to methylation and microplastics and all of that. So if someone is in their 20s and it's really not uncommon anymore and they're having hormonal issues, then you need a nice panel to see what their exposures are, how well their liver's functioning, and then just try to get them to understand what a quote unquote healthy lifestyle would be, what the right foods are for them. I'm definitely not a fan of saying like carnivore, vegan, like paleo. I don't like labeling it. I like looking at an individual and figuring out what their body responds to better. But I see a lot of girls in their teens, because a lot of women I work with have teenagers, And so typically in that age group, what I'm finding is just highly processed foods, just being the bulk of their diet.
Ugh, it's
Yeah.
tough, and like that's the time where we can really educate and empower women to prevent this stuff, but it's hard. It's just so easy, and they're not getting that feedback that it's negative at that point. So we gotta, I think, just sharing like the long-term vision of where we're going with this and the impact to our metabolic health and to our mitochondria. You mentioned that. I mean, there's just so many influences from the environment that could harm our mitochondria. Can you explain a little bit more about the role of mitochondria in this hormonal transition?
Well, we have the most mitochondria in our ovaries. So anything that we're going to do to support mitochondrial health is going to extend the life of our ovaries and just make our all over health feel better. We're going to have more energy. So anything that's good for cellular health is great for any period of life, but especially during perimenopause and the whole transition. So like when I do red light, I have a panel and I make sure that I don't have a shirt or a bra on, and I always make sure that it goes over my ovaries, breasts, heart, thyroid, brain, to have proper sunlight, proper circadian rhythm, like all the things that we hear so much about, but I think almost gets lost because people don't understand why. It's like, okay, I get it, your little morning routine and this and that, and all of that's important. And then it just sort of, you just sort of glaze over and think, oh, who cares? This is just a bunch of like,
It's a
whatever.
checklist for what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you explain it I especially find that girls in their teens and 20s are like so thirsty for this information and they love hearing it. I get more resistance from a woman in her 50s that doesn't want to give up her nightly glass of wine. And then when I talk to a younger woman, if you tell them that their skin's going to look great, their hair's going to look great, and they respond very quickly, like the younger you are, the quicker you respond. And so they try living that way for a week or so, and they're like, wow, like I feel so great. And they're so into it. Whereas an older woman who's more kind of set in her ways, and especially the wine thing, they're just like so attached to the nightly wine. And,
That's the
which
worst
increase,
time to be drinking. Like late 40s, early
it's
50s, probably the worst time for alcohol, right?
the worst time. And so many of those women are very afraid of HRT, but our risk of breast cancer goes up substantially with the amount of alcohol we consume. So they're putting themselves at so much more risk of breast cancer by drinking as opposed to taking HRT, which is actually very protective.
Yeah.
This is kind of funny. Lauren and I have been talking about this on the podcast lately about how alcohol sales are at an all-time low in the U.S.,
Yeah.
which like is great. But I was just at Death Valley National Park over the weekend, and the hotel had this little art and wine festival on the grounds, and my husband and I were walking through there and chatting with some people. It was really cute. But I was talking to this woman from Napa Valley who works at a vineyard. She said wineries and vineyards are closing in Napa because wine sales are down. She said a lot,
Right.
yeah, she said a lot of the small family vineyards there just they can't even stay in business. Isn't that crazy?
That makes me
I,
sad. I'm
I,
also like, that wine is crap.
I know it's probably yeah, it's the crappy wine companies that are staying in business. They're cheap wine.
That's
I also think a lot of that is because of GLP-1s, because a lot of
Oh,
women,
right.
they can't drink when they're at, like they just physically will, get sick. And
Yeah.
even though they still
Right.
want it, they can't have it.
Right.
So that's a thing for sure.
That's a really
Yeah.
good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about why alcohol is so bad for our hormones. What is it doing to the liver and anywhere else in the body?
Well, because it's a toxin, our body's going to prioritize getting rid of it before doing anything else. So if you take estrogen and then have a glass of wine, that estrogen is going to be circulating, causing inflammation. We're supposed to be, metabolizing it through our liver and excreting it. So estrogen's not meant to just hang around. It's meant to come in, do its thing, go out. But if your liver is taking care of alcohol, it's not going to be getting rid of that estrogen. And so you're going to be bloated, you're going to have estrogen dominant symptoms, and it's not going to go well, and it's going to increase your risk of cancer. So although estrogen doesn't, if you're going to mix it with alcohol, then that's a problem. So you got to choose. Does that mean you can never drink? No. I mean, I personally don't, but if I wanted to, it wouldn't be that big of a deal if I wanted to every once in a while have a drink. But it's really the habitual nightly, 4 times a week, that's becomes an issue because it takes your body a good 3 to 4 days to fully deal with that alcohol. So
Yeah.
if you're drinking
Yeah.
every 3 days, you're never recovered.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's so important for people to hear that your body's going to prioritize the toxin. So I think that extends to so many areas. Like women are trying to burn fat, but they're drinking. It's like your body doesn't care about burning
Oh,
fat. Or you're trying to lower inflammation. Your body doesn't care about that. It's trying to deal with the alcohol always. So that priority, that hierarchy is, I think that's the education that people need. So it's not just, I'm sticking to this checklist. It's like, I understand what's happening with my physiology, and now I won't do that, perhaps.
and for all of those reasons, it's also why you don't want to take birth control in perimenopause. I mean, a lot of women aren't on birth control at all, and then they're told to take it during perimenopause to stabilize, to regularize their menstrual cycle. And of course, it's not regulating anything, it's just taking it away.
Yeah. Anti.
But one of the worries of taking oral contraception is the increase in blood clots um, and cardiovascular events. And during that time, our risks already go up. So to compound that with the birth control pill is a really bad idea.
Yeah, yeah. On
But
the topic of detox, because it's something our bodies are naturally supposed to do, but we have kind of an increased load in this transition. What are some of like the natural strategies you like to support detox pathways for women that maybe be like easy and accessible?
well, easy and accessible. First thing I was going to say is sauna, but that's not necessarily accessible to everyone. But it is
Getting
my
easier.
favorite.
Getting easier, but yeah.
You just get so much out in a short amount of time. But again, if your detox pathways are congested, you can actually feel worse. You can herx. So we do have to open things up. So whether you're doing a sauna or not, I do like to make sure. So if I know someone's genetics, that's great. If I don't, I'm going to assume that they have an issue with methylation. So I always say methylated B vitamins. NAC with vitamin C is great, especially for your endometrial lining. It really helps with detox daily. I would say I don't take it with red meat, so it can increase iron saturation. And so sometimes a woman will have hemochromatosis and not realize it. And so in perimenopause, if they're having less cycles, they can get an iron buildup. Um, but yeah, NAC, glutathione, not daily. I wouldn't do glutathione daily. Um, it's hard to recommend because it depends on the woman and what her tolerance is, and some of these things can make people feel worse,
Sure. But
which
what
is why it's
about like,
important to.
yeah, to address the individual, but even just things like castor oil, vibration, lymphatic strategies, are you a fan of those?
So lymph is such a big priority. I mean, at any stage, but especially like it becomes more sluggish with age. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of using a rebounder. I do it every day, even if I don't feel like it. 15 minutes is kind of golden, but even if you just have 5, that's fine. Just whatever you can do. There are some supplements you can take to help with lymph. Even standing in a swimming pool is one of my favorite things. So because the pressure that goes from your ankle to your neck is like the perfect amount to get your lymph going. So if you just stand in the deep end and jump and move your arms around, it's amazing for lymph. Um, Dry brushing is great. I do castor oil every night. I started castor oil, I guess 10 years ago when I was sick with mold, and I would put it over my liver with some essential oils, and lay in bed with my kids and read or watch a show, or it was kind of, signaled my body that it was time to wind down. It was a nice, relaxing routine. But now I've actually increased it to like I am castor oil from neck to
Oh my God.
because
What do you
because
put
it's
on
really great.
top? What do you put on top so it doesn't get all messy?
I so the flannel is itchy for me, so I just put castor because I like it over my thyroid, over my breasts, over my ovaries because it really helps to avoid cysts and fibroids and all of that, and it really helps your thyroid. So I put it all over, and then I put a t-shirt, the same t-shirt. I just have my little castor oil t-shirt, and I put that over, and then I do a long heating pad.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right.
So I'm totally covered, so I can still hang out like with my kids, and I'm, covered up, but yeah.
Yeah. I
You
don't
gotta
know
have
what
the
mommy's
special
doing
t-shirt.
under there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
you do have
lymph
to have
is
an outfit set aside for that, for sure.
yeah, it's a whole outfit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I put a lot of effort into lymph, and I didn't used to, and I didn't have to. But now, I mean, even though I'm doing quote unquote like all the right things, it is still a challenge. I'll notice that if I don't do my lymph routine, I'll be a couple pounds heavier, and it's all basically like lymphatic fluid, like just stuck. And then I'll just go in the pool and do my thing, and the next day I'm back to normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that a lot. Like people that are like, I'm doing all the right things, but the lymphatic piece tends to be missing in those people that are doing all the right things. And I think it's just so easy. I love the standing in the pool. You could do like just the tapping for the big six,
Thing.
pumping your calves, going for a walk. Like I think that's just so accessible. I feel like everyone should be doing that. That to me is a non-negotiable.
Yeah, I have a neck roll. Oh, I actually have it right here. I have this little neck roller thing. I don't even know what it's called, but I'll just put it on the back here because it really gets here and gets that I'll like kind of tap here,
Yeah.
and then I'll get that going. And if your face is puffy, also that's a sign that your lymph is stuck, and so anything like that will really help it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. I like all those. Well, what about coffee enemas? Are you a fan of that?
So I'll do a coffee enema when I have a long flight.
Oh. Before the flight?
After.
Oh, after. Okay.
So oh God, no.
In the airport bathroom? This
That's
lady has
hilarious.
been in the bathroom the whole flight.
No, I have a whole we could do a whole podcast on like my flying protocol. But my post flight is I do castor oil, and then I do a coffee enema, and I'll lay on my side with the red light on it. I think that people can really overdo it and deplete, their microbiome, and people can get punctured. Like there's things that you need to think about. So I don't do it that often, but after a long flight, I do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you're
it's a
just
great time.
exposed to so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, flying is really
So-
tough on the whole system.
Yeah, it's just it's a lot of oxidative stress, a lot of radiation. It's, stagnates your lymphatic system. It just affects everything. And I can't imagine when I see people drinking alcohol on a flight, I'm just like, oof.
And like
And it's the
shitty alcohol. It's not even
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not like tequila. It's just, like a Coke and, a drink put
that's
in
the
there.
last thing I want to do on an airplane, honestly.
Yeah, free Behringer wine in the air. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I fly, all the things I do when I fly is really great too for just the oxidative stress that we are dealing with during perimenopause. So I'm a big fan of molecular hydrogen. I do drink, I put a tablet in my water every morning. I put a tablet anytime before I do red light because red light does increase oxidative stress. So like in a good way, but like anything, it could, you don't want to overdo it. And so, I do like molecular hydrogen a lot for perimenopause because of oxidative stress and inflammation. All of those markers just go up very quickly at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, we're big fans of hydrogen. I think it's such an easy thing that everyone can do with amazing benefits and no downside, unless you drink too much, but that's pretty hard to do. It's also good for the mitochondria. So I'm curious, do you do anything else for mitochondria like urolithin A or spermidine, any other supplements?
Oh, yes.
She's
yes,
like, I
yes,
love
yes.
everything.
Okay,
So
cool.
there-
I take those every day. I love them. Okay, good.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there's been a lot of research with urolithin aid urolithin A and perimenopause and all that, and ovarian function, ovarian health. So it is a really good one to take. I do take spermidine. I take primidine at night. I like that one. I also take Qualia. Qualia Life has some great supplements for brain protection. So I take their night and their day. They also have a nice NAD with resveratrol supplement. When I fly, I wear an NAD patch. It's got about 1,000 milligrams on it.
Which one are you using? Is it Ion?
I used to use Ion, and now I use Push Patch because Ion's got like 500 and Push Patch has 1,000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Cool.
So even on like across the world flight, I throw on that patch and I take my iodine and chlorella and hydrogen water and all of that. Like I always feel great after I get off a flight. I've
Nice.
never felt that. I mean, I used to feel the hangover of the flight, and now
Yeah.
I don't. But our brains are more at risk as we're losing hormones. So we lose hippocampal volume as we're losing estrogen. So anything to protect our brains is super important at that time.
Yeah. Because
And
women
then
are at a higher risk for Alzheimer's, correct?
they are.
And is that mostly because of the estrogen?
So no one really knows because it's, Lisa Mosconi is doing research in this area. She's sort of the first one really to pay attention to women in this way. I mean, everyone's kind of known that it's like 2-to-1 women to men. And you can sort of assume it's estrogen because what else has changed during that period?
Yeah.
But there wouldn't be, there's not definitive answers, although there is research that shows that women who take HRT estrogen have less of an instance of Alzheimer's, and also anyone with the ApoE4 gene, they can have 1 or 2 alleles. Taking testosterone is actually very protective for your brain for those women in particular.
Oh, okay.
No, we each have a copy, so.
Yeah, 3-4.
A lot of people have a copy, and they're quick responders to HRT, which is really nice. So they have more protection than other people when they take testosterone, when they take estrogen. They have even more protection than your average person. And those people are also, those are the ones that are going to see changes in their lipids, especially oxidized lipids. So that's going to really change as you're losing estrogen. So things like CoQ10, which also helps with mitochondrial function, vitamin E, bergamot. There are some great supplements that can really help with ApoE4 during that transition. But yeah, for that subset in particular, like thinking about HRT earlier in perimenopause rather than later is super important, which I think is just so cool because no one even knew any of that. I know, like when my mom was going through it, none of this was even a conversation.
Even 10 years ago,
No.
it's really exploded. Yeah, I think women in their 30s are really at an advantage getting this information now.
Yes.
Yeah, they are. And I think younger women in their even teens, 20s are really wanting to know how to prevent this stuff and what is to come and what they should be doing now. So I do love talking to the younger subset because I think that even women, I would say even early 40s and on, are still super afraid of hormones. And a lot of women will go through perimenopause and menopause and actually have no symptoms. And so they think that they're like, no, I felt fine. Everything was great. And that can be a concern because just because you feel great, it doesn't mean you're not losing your bone and you're not at risk for osteoporosis. It doesn't mean you're not losing hippocampal volume. It doesn't mean that your lipids aren't climbing and you're at risk for cardiovascular disease. So it's a blessing really when someone does have some symptoms earlier because they're going to be a little bit more proactive about it. Because I do talk to women all the time that are 10 years out and they say they breezed through it and they felt great and they could still sleep, never had a hot flash, and they have osteoporosis. So
Yeah, the
it's
Yeah.
bone
those are
health.
yeah, they're that's why they call them the silent killers, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I personally I did a DEXA 2 years ago and it came back beautiful, great, all good. And then I did the REMS scan last year, and I have very poor bone quality, and I'm 39. So that like that's a huge wake up call. If at 39 I'm already seeing that, but it's funny, not funny, that DEXA didn't even pick it up.
No, I love that you got REMS. And I always say that to women too. If you have REMS accessible to you, because it's not everywhere, but it's becoming
Right.
more
It's
available.
hard to find. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, a DEXA can tell you have strong bones, but they might be brittle. You know,
Right.
so you would have an increased risk of fracture if we don't just want strong bones, we want them to be flexible to withstand a fall. So I love that REMS will tell you your fragility risk, you know, your risk of fracture and all of that. Because yeah, and there's women with deep osteopenia, even osteoporosis, who actually have pretty good bone quality and their risk of fracture isn't very high. So the DEXA for
Oh,
sure isn't the whole story. I mean, it's great, and if you've got nothing else, you should get a DEXA. But I like REMS way more.
yeah.
Okay.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, DEXA, just the history of it was just that it came out as the same time as bisphosphonates, and it was really a marriage with the pharmaceutical company because the bisphosphonates needed a way to say you need to take these drugs, so take a DEXA.
So they could make
Yeah.
money. Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yes.
brilliant, really, for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of our testing, we got a test to show that your thyroid is impaired and your cholesterol's messed up, so you can take the medications
yeah.
without looking at
But
the whole genome.
OsteoStrong is one of my favorite places, though. I don't know if you have any near you.
I have one 5 minutes down the street, actually.
You
I
should go
have.
every week.
I need to go. I do need to go now that I know about my bone quality.
It takes
Yeah.
two set. I go every week. It takes 10 minutes. It's
Okay.
I'm fortunate enough where there's a couple, so anywhere I drive by, it's like it's easy to pop in for 10 minutes and do the circuit.
It's just
And
once a week?
it's
One.
just once a week for 10 minutes tops. They have
Okay.
4 machines, and the results I've seen for myself and clients is so amazing.
That's awesome. Well, on the topic of bones and exercise, we started this conversation talking about like maybe women have cracked the code and then they start getting these symptoms of this transition, and then it's like, oh, I gotta reformulate how I think about nutrition, about exercise. Besides like the osteogenic loading, what else would you recommend women maybe consider or think about in terms of moving their body and making sure we're protecting muscle and bone?
Well, a lot of women, especially I would say 40s, 50s, kind of grew up at a time where it was just all cardio and not a lot of protein.
Yeah.
So especially because of cortisol and our adrenals, you know, we very much need to protect our adrenals if we want to hang on to our hormones. So I don't like anything that's too cardio focused. You know, you would think that the pounding of running would be good for your bones, but it's not. So I would say, you know,
Yeah.
if you are one of those people to transition more into leaning into weights, you know, 3 times a week, weights is really important, and start wherever you're at and just continue to grow, not to be intimidated. If you're not lifting much, who cares? It's just, you know, but perfection is the enemy of progress, right? It's like, don't expect to start and be perfect. Who cares? Just start. Um,
Or
and then
do
the whole
something like an
protein,
osteo strong, which is a very safe
yeah.
movement patterning. You can't really get injured on osteo strong.
No, I mean, there's 80-year-olds with osteoporosis in there, you know, yeah, it's a great one. And and then the protein, you know, I would say I appreciate that it's part of the conversation. I definitely prioritize it, but don't forget about the fiber that we need to metabolize our estrogen and get it out of circulation and to combat the increased risk of oxidative stress at this time. So, like eating as many colors is really important. And to also get that protein in there, which can be tricky. And we also lose hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes. So, it's most women, the older they get, will need to take a digestive enzyme, especially when they eat sort of a protein heavy meal. But that can be really challenging to get all that in. So I don't focus so much on, I mean, yes, in theory, you want to get 1 gram of protein per, desired body weight. So if you want to be 130 pounds, eat 130 grams. But don't lose sight of the fruits and vegetables, because I see that happen a lot, and that can, then you lose your gut diversity, which when we lose estrogen, we're automatically losing gut diversity. So we need to work extra hard to get all those colors in for our immune system and everything.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite parts of cycle syncing nutrition. If you do still have a cycle, getting the fibers in at that point when we are metabolizing and excreting. I think we are so focused on the protein and the carbs, but we're missing the things that help us to metabolize the hormones.
Yes, yes. And I just, the whole meat thing is just so in the conversation right now that I see a lot of people just leaning a little bit too heavily into it and forgetting the rest of it. I mean, I just think it just all comes back to a balanced diet, a balanced plate.
Yeah.
If you're labeling it a certain thing, a carnivore or whatever, this or that, you probably don't have the diversity on your plate that you should have.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And a lot of women, they lean into carnivore at this time because they're gaining weight, and they remember, when I was in my 20s, I would do like Atkins for a week, and I would drop a quick 5 pounds and fit into that dress on Saturday. And we're not in that phase anymore. Like, you can't just do that. First of all, it likely won't work. And if it does, it's training your body to live in a state that you don't want it living in. You want abundance, right? But if you keep lowering your calorie intake and restricting your foods, you keep lowering the bar, and then lowering your tolerance of what you can have in your life, and you can get stuck.
Definitely.
Yeah, what is that doing to your nervous system every time you do that?
Yeah. And with the bones, I would say, if you've got the protein, you're doing the weights, it's very difficult if you have no testosterone. So it is, or progesterone or estrogen. I mean, they all feed into our bones. It's hard to make progress without them.
With no hormones. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, are you a fan of any supplements to support testosterone before jumping to HRT?
I mean, there's a period of early perimenopause. I would say mid to late perimenopause, it becomes very difficult to help. I mean, testosterone is more an adrenal issue. So anything that's gonna, whether it's ashwagandha, rhodiola, anything to sort of, or, breath work, meditation. If I see a woman whose estrogen and progesterone is pretty good, but their testosterone is tanked, that's a pretty good indicator that they're having adrenal issues, and that they need to focus more on that. So, and I mean, there's women in their 70s who are not taking testosterone, and their numbers are just fine. I mean, I do see that where they don't need it. Some of it's genetics, and some of it's that they have a calm nervous system.
So much comes back to the nervous system. I think that's a big opportunity for women. Just the stressors that we take on culturally and biologically. It's a lot.
And that's one of the reasons why, like in the beginning of the podcast, I said it's a great time to really reevaluate and force yourself to make changes that maybe you didn't, because we can't do the things we did before, in our 20s when we were just going a million miles a minute, and you're still going out drinking, and you're doing all of that, and then all of a sudden you can't. And so, as boring as doing breath work might seem, or I personally hate doing breath work, I feel like $1,000,000 after, but I have such a hard time motivating myself to do it. But it's like the number one thing for me.
I'm totally with you. I was just telling Lauren this recently. I've always been the one that's like, oh, breathwork class, I don't want to go to that. Breathwork this, no, thank you. But I need it probably more than anyone. And so
Yeah, we're
Because I
often
guess.
resistant to the things maybe we need the most. But
Yeah. So I find using apps, like guided breath work is my jam. Like I can't sit on the floor with my legs crossed and do my own breath work. I'll get sidetracked. But if I follow an app that has music and things, I get into it and then I feel really good. So you just have to figure out what works for you.
Yeah, I use a couple apps. I use Brain Tap,
Oh,
um,
yes. Love Brain Tap.
which is like you're just fully in it. And it can really like it gets me so in the moment and I feel so good after. I love it. It's just like an immersive experience. And then I got certified through NeuroFit, which I really liked. And it's just little 3-minute exercises that are super easy to do. And
Okay.
like during that certification process where I was really had to do it like multiple times a day, my HRV was so high. Like
Cool.
crazy. I mean, it just, when you are trying to increase your HRV, nothing works as well as breath work.
yeah,
And
Absolutely.
yeah, I don't think there's a workaround for that though. My little hack when I'm like not willing to do the breath work is I sigh a lot because we know the impact to down regulating the nervous system. I'm just like, let's normalize sighing. I'm like, I don't care if anyone thinks I'm upset. I'm just like,
I know. I do that all the time. And my husband's always like, "Are you okay? Are you
yeah.
okay?" And so
I'm like, I'm
literally,
great.
last week I finally had to sit him down and say, look, there's science behind a physiological sigh and what it does for the nervous system. So when you hear me do it, don't panic. I'm fine. I'm just resetting my nervous system. And so
Yeah.
now he leaves me alone when I do it.
yeah, or like if I'm driving and I'm either feeling tired or stressed out and I just search for a good song and I just belt it out and then you get
Yeah.
all that moving and then I just feel so good after.
What's your
Yeah.
favorite song? What's your favorite song to rock out to?
Oh God. I mean, this morning I did it too. So I like hair bands, you know? I listen to Hair Nation on Sirius a lot.
Nice.
Awesome.
I
So
love
yeah,
it.
I was listening to a song by Vixen that you probably don't know who they are. It was like an all-girl hair band,
Amazing.
and they have
Oh,
some
okay.
jams.
Yeah, I
Nice.
love that. The power of music and then the vibration if you're singing or humming. We don't utilize that enough, I think, in American culture. So,
Yeah, and women don't use their voices a lot, which also contributes to this whole issue of thyroid issues and stuff. I think,
totally.
you know, it's obviously progesterone and hormones and not having the nutrients we need and all of that. But I also think it comes at a time where women are, you know, maybe unhappy in their marriage or dealing with teens or dealing with aging parents and they're not expressing the frustration that they're feeling or anxiety or all the things. And so, you know, it really shows up in your thyroid. So, yeah, getting that area to get some movement is so good.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Before we start to wrap up, I wanted to circle back to just some resources for the listener if they are interested in doing this prevention with HRT. What are like some key words or maybe even red flags to discern if they're finding the right practitioner to work with? Because there's a lot out there.
I do have on my website, I do have a download of questions to ask and then potential answers you would want to look for. And one of them is what we discussed, which is if they do pellets. So pellets are one of the few forms of HRT where they get a kickback. So it's always automatically a flag. Also, pellets are, you know, beyond physiologic doses when they're put in. And then, you know, as time goes on, they go low. So if you don't have a good reaction, you're stuck, you're in it for a few months. So I ask if someone does pellets. I like to ask, is there a difference between like progestins or progesterone? Because if a doctor says no, it's just a marketing term, you know, everything's, you know, bioidentical is nonsense, anything like that. If they say they don't want to test or they don't track hormones, if they're not interested in looking at other issues, if, you know, there was this very well-known influencer that I was on a call with a doctor, and someone was asking, like, I'm on hormones, but I still am having these headaches, and describing her whole situation, and all of my little mold radars going off. I'm like, this woman is moldy. Like, I could bet anything on it. And the physician said, you need more estrogen. Like, that was just her answer. And it wasn't even like, how much, what are your levels at? How much are you taking? It was just like, you just need more. So if someone's not interested in looking at any of your other issues and looking for toxins or anything like that, that's a red flag. Someone who doesn't want to take any time to spend with you. I would say there's a lot of great options online, and there's a lot of bad ones. So, I mean, I could say one that I don't have an affiliation with that I personally like, because they coach you through it.
Sure.
I like Joy, which is JOI. I know them well, and I've had clients work with them, and they talk with you, and they have health coaches, and I like the way that they apply them. And then there's other companies that are the largest ones in the space that I probably shouldn't say because I don't want to get in trouble, but like, they are not good. Not good. So you have to be careful when you go online.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
But the biggest ones are the biggest ones that most people hear about are not a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't press the first one that pops up in your feed, potentially.
The
Yeah.
ones that have like all the venture capital money behind them and things like that, and the ones that are saying you don't need to test, it's the zone of chaos, and you just answer a couple questions and you're never going to see them again, and you're never going to have a conversation with anyone and say, well, why do I feel like this, or why, yeah.
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 Big red flag.
Yeah, we have had, so Blokes is for men and then Joy is for women.
Yeah.
The founder, why am I blanking on his name? Josh?
Dr. Jace.
Well, he was the doctor, but then the founder.
Oh.
Anyways, we did a
I can't remember.
podcast with them. So totally, that's good to hear, because I thought that they were doing some good work. So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like to mention them just because it can be hard for people to find someone in their area, or,
Yeah,
For sure.
the first step is the hardest. Like, where do people even look? We would love to share that download and other resources that you want to offer our audience. Can you tell our listeners where to find more of you?
Yeah, my website is Strong Choices, and my Instagram is at Strong Choices 1, the number 1. And yeah, I like to provide as much education as I can. I enjoy doing that a lot. So
Awesome.
Great. Yes, we'll link to that in the show notes so everyone can scroll down and find you. Elizabeth,
Thank you.
one final question for you. Can you give our audience one piece of advice, something they should start doing today to optimize their health?
eat real food. I like to also say prioritize sleep, but eat real food. Just, nothing with labels. No bags, no boxes, just food, meat, fruit, vegetables. One ingredient foods, yeah.
Yeah. Food that our ancestors would recognize as food.
Yeah.
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 Wonderful. All right.
Simple and
Well,
easy.
yeah. Thank you so much
Right.
for joining us today. That was really informative. I learned a lot personally too, as I'm about to maybe go through this journey. We don't know when, but I feel very empowered from everything. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time.